I believe that my fellow veterans are an abiding priority, and I know we can trust her with our future. Join me, vote for Ginger Cruz for Congress. Si Juus Maasri.
I'm Ginger Cruz. I approve this message, and I humbly ask for your vote.
KUAM TV8, first on Guam. KUAM News headlines are presented by Calvo's Insurance, protecting Micronesia for 85 years. Matson and the Adahi Itano program. Apply at matson.com. New Jeep Gladiators up to $7,000 off now at Cars Plus. Named the best vehicle for adventure in 2024. Get your Jeep Gladiator today at Cars Plus. McDonald's of Guam, I'm loving it. And King's Restaurant, serving your local breakfast, lunch, and dinner favorites for over 45 years.
Ahead on KUAM News Primetime.
Where will the new KUAM Memorial Hospital be located? The big announcement coming from Guadalupe today. I'm Destiny Cruz with the story coming up.
A handful of new laws put in place to include making it a crime to be under the influence behind bars. I'm Mitsuki Hirayama with the details on what bills got the governor's support.
She completed a half Ironman triathlon with breast cancer. I'm Jonagan Charfers, and coming up tonight, we kick off our week-long Think Pink series and feature 54-year-old Thelma Soriano, a breast cancer survivor whose diagnosis gave her a new perspective on life and to not sweat the small stuff.
News Primetime, I'm Nick Delgado. Thank you for starting your week here with us. A new medical complex or a new Guam Memorial Hospital, whatever it is called, it will be located along Route 15 in Manilao, across the street from the Guam Power and Guam Waterworks Authority building. The governor making the announcement from Guadalupe today, joined by officials from the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority. GURA helped to secure the private property at $3.5 million. As Destiny Cruz reports, the governor projects Guam will have a new hospital in that central village as early as 2029.
Manilao for sure. Those are the words Governor Lou Leon Guerrero confidently told KUAM during a tour at the Guam Memorial Hospital in September when asked the location for the new hospital. Her comments sparked more questions as to where for weeks. And today, that question was answered during a press conference at Guadalupe. The new hospital will be located on Route 15 next to Eagles Field.
The property is 48 acres. In Manilao, the cost of the property was $3.5 million. It was appraised, and that was the value.
The Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority managing the acquisition of the private land under the estate of Catalina Aclava Camacho. Specifically, the land is located across the Guam Waterworks and Guam Power Authority's headquarters in Manilao. The governor taking this route after the legislature voted down two of her previous site picks, Eagles Field and Eda Agaga.
We do not have to go to the legislature for this property.
The selected site costs $3.5 million.
As we understand, GURA's mandate is urban development and housing. And in their housing mandate, healthcare facility is one of the authorities that they have.
The courts approving the sale of the property last Thursday. The purchase, she says, will be finalized in the coming days. Now plans for preparatory work, like preparing the land, topography, and infrastructure, and getting an architectural and engineer firm are the next steps forward. The Magahaga says this will give GovGuam a better idea of the actual cost of the hospital's construction.
I am targeting to do this work by the end of this year. And just for your information, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about ARP monies, I do have about $120 million of ARP money that I have set aside. And I have argued incessantly that that should be for the beginning work of the preparatory work for new hospital and construction.
For now, Guadalupe is eyeing groundbreaking in the next year or year and a half, with hopes for a new hospital for Guam in the next 4 to 5 years.
There will be a hospital on our island that will meet the needs of our medical care for our people.
Destiny Cruz, KUAM News.
Meantime, the current public hospital is among the items to be discussed during emergency session tomorrow. The speaker calling senators into session at 9 a.m. stating the urgency surrounds the Guam Memorial Hospital's ability to provide critical services amid its dire financial situation. The Guam Department of Education's critical need for funding, which they testified is necessary to maintain safe and sanitary conditions for students, faculty, and staff. The Guam Cancer Trust Fund underfunding for fiscal year 2025, which would result in significant gaps in the essential cancer services compared to the prior fiscal year, and other critical needs following the passage of the current budget law. Again, emergency session begins at 9 in the morning. On new laws for you to know tonight, the governor is signing a handful of bills into law to include making it a crime to be under the influence behind bars. The Magahaga also vetoing 3 highly debated measures. Mitsuki Hirayama joins us with details.
There's a handful of new laws that you need to follow as of today. One may surprise you and have you asking why this wasn't illegal before. Public Law 129 now makes it a crime for an inmate or detainee to be under the influence of alcohol or a controlled substance within the Department of Corrections prison. That means those caught under the influence behind bars may face a $500 fine or an additional sentence of 90 days or more. Previously, the only punishment was disciplinary action. In enacting this law, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero says it creates a greater deterrence and the threat of prosecution could be used in plea deals in the fight against contraband. As KUAM reported, just this year alone, there's been multiple alarming incidents of inmates getting their hands on contraband inside the prison walls, to include fentanyl, large amounts of meth, marijuana, and even a gun. The governor also passed 2 bills that would provide a pathway forward for Chamorro Land Trust leaseholders and applicants, a measure that authorizes free bus passes to those who lack access to reliable transportation, and a bill which allows a select few agencies to hire environmental law attorneys for their exclusive use. Meantime, she vetoed 3 highly debated bills, to include the Electronic Nicotine Delivery System Product Tax Bill. The governor says the measure would be difficult and cumbersome to implement because it creates a new and unnecessary taxing scheme specifically just for ENDS products. Leon Guerrero also vetoed the Public Auditor Bill that would streamline the judicial review process. She says this measure, as passed, would remove an important provision of the law that safeguards the separation of powers. The governor also rejected a bill that would have authorized a term extension for a lease between the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission and the AT&T Corporation. She shared concerns over the lack of a market value appraisal of the Dededo Cable Landing Station property. For the full responses to the signed and vetoed measures, just visit KUAM.com. Mitsuki Hirayama, KUAM News.
Guam Attorney General Doug Moylan says his office was expecting the dismissal of the charges against former Public Health Director Art St. Augustine and Chief Health Inspector Tom Nadeau. He plans to fight it before the Supreme Court of Guam. This as the court also dismissed the charges with prejudice for the defendants in the Guam Regional Transit Authority corruption case. As KUAM reported, a Superior Court judge dismissed the corruption allegations with prejudice, stating the AG failed to appoint a special prosecutor. AG Moylan states in part, "We remain concerned that the lower trial courts are interfering with the people's choice of elected AG to prosecute government officials and enforce our criminal laws against them." He adds, quote, "Several grand juries believed cause existed that several government officials have these criminal charges go before a jury of 12 persons in our community." The case unfolding in summer of 2023, alleging public health leaders signed off on school inspection reports for inspections that never happened. The deadline to register to vote is tomorrow, October 22nd, and the new KUAM News poll is now live. Head over to the KUAM News Facebook page now to decide who you want to lead the island ahead of the November 5th general. It's round 2 of the KUAM News poll. We will have it available for the public for 2 weeks. So now's your chance to decide. We will also have the poll link on KUAM.com. And if you vote in the Northern Marianas, we want to hear from you. Vote now on the KUAM News interactive online CNMI delegate poll. To vote on the poll, find the link on our KUAM News Facebook page, KUAM CNMI on Instagram, and KUAM.com. And this week on The Hub, we have 5 senatorial candidates scheduled to appear in the KUAM studios Under the Republican ticket is incumbent Tello Taitagui, former Senator Tony Atta, and newcomers Sabrina Salas-Matanani and Vic Gaza. In the Democrat race, we've got Dave Duenas. Hear what these 5 senatorial candidates have to say as they each take questions from you, the voters. The Hub airs every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. following primetime. Well, there's still time to get tickets for the Guam Women's Chamber 2024 General Election Congressional and Legislative Candidate Forum. Visit guamwomenschamber.com if you'd like to attend. It's there you can watch congressional candidates James Moylan and Ginger Cruz take questions from the organization. 8 senatorial candidates have also confirmed attendance. The forum is this Thursday from 5 p.m. to 8:45 p.m. at the Hyatt Regency in Tumon. Do you support organized labor? That's the question the CNMI Firefighters Union is asking legislators. Tomas Manglona reports.
The NMI Professional Firefighters Union is going door to door at the CNMI legislature asking lawmakers a critical question. Ed De La Cruz is the union's vice president.
Do you support organized labor in the CNMI, also known as unions, as well as the rights of all public sector employees to collectively bargain?
Paul Sasamoto is the union's president.
I think we have about half of the legislature already that agreed to support us in the labor management and in collective bargaining.
So far, 10 out of 29 lawmakers indicated that they support organized labor and the rights of all public sector employees to collectively bargain. The union says it will continue to knock on legislators' doors.
So knowing that our elected leaders up there support this right to be able to organize should show that people do not have to be scared to be able to organize out here in the CNMI.
Meanwhile, the union is also working on getting former or current firefighters who may be sick due to firefighting foam or AFFF used on the job the help they need.
We don't understand how many people have been affected, but I can say it's very serious because I know for sure personally I know one, and I've already reached out to him and brought him over to our law firm in the States. So we've had one so far right now, and it could be growing. You don't have to be old to get this. Even our current firefighters could start exhibiting symptoms from this, and they're going to need help immediately.
The union urges anyone who has been exposed and has symptoms or has been diagnosed with cancer to call them at 670-287-0891. There's an ongoing lawsuit against the manufacturer with more than 10,000 claims already.
We already know that our management at Commonwealth Ports Authority is doing everything in their power, working with FAA, EPA, BCQ to phase out this foam and get the new foam that they're currently manufacturing to replace this one right now.
Tomas Manglona, KUAM News, Saipan.
Well, the state funeral for the late Governor Paul M. Calvo was set for Thursday morning at the Guam Congress Building in Hagåtña. GovGuam will also hold a period of silence from 8 a.m. to 8:03 a.m. that day, meaning general operations for the government will pause in honor and respect for the island's 3rd elected governor. Tonight, KUAM TV and Peacock will present a special tribute to the late governor. The family of the late Governor Paul MacDonald Calvo had entrusted ethnographer and oral historian Arlene Steffi with the task of creating a tribute to honor Governor Calvo's profound impact on Guam's history, language, culture, and governance, as well as his deep love and commitment to his wife Rosie and their family. Micronesia Publishing brings this heartfelt tribute to life. Watch it tonight at 6:30 p.m. on KUAM TV 8 and on Peacock. We'll be right back.
Special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. 2 chicken patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, and pickles on a sesame seed bun. 2 all beef patties, 2 chicken patties, 2 chicken patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, sesame seed bun. 2 delicious patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles on a sesame seed bun.
It's not a Big Mac. It's the Chicken Big Mac. Get it while you can.
Don't need to work break, keep the smile on your face. The moments you can't replace, and I'll be around. Whoa. You can count on me. You can count on me for life.
Wherever life takes you, We're always here for you. Calvo's Insurance. Count on us for life.
Need a place that has everything you're looking for without the extra stops? Kmart is the ultimate destination for saving time and money with unbeatable deals, all in one place. From groceries to personal and home essentials to the latest trends, everything you need is right here. For yourself, your family, your home. Find it all at Kmart, your destination for deals, where convenience, variety, and value come together. Make Kmart your one-stop shop today. Follow us on our social media and check out our website for weekly deals. Kmart, your destination for deals.
Think Pink is brought to you by the American Cancer Society and Island Cancer Center.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and this week we kick off our Think Pink series. All week, our Jonah Charfris will be sharing the stories of breast cancer warriors and survivors. Kicking off the series, we have Thelma Soriano.
Initially, I felt a lump, just right in this area. And it was, I want to say in the beginning of the year, but I didn't really think anything of it. At the time, I was training for a half Ironman triathlon, and I was also working.
That was in early 2022 when Thelma Soriano was in the process of retiring and life was just really busy. It was when she got back from the triathlon competition that she noticed the lump got bigger. After her primary doctor recommended she get a mammogram, there was concern, so a biopsy was ordered, and the results came back positive for cancer, which was something Soriano said the doctor prepared her for.
You hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And because she already told me that everything can be done here, treatment, surgery, when she said, as soon as she said it was cancer, my focus was, okay, what's our next step?
Her doctor mapped out everything for her, from getting an MRI to seeing a surgeon and also an oncologist. A team had been formed, ready for battle, and be by her side through her cancer journey. And on those toughest days of her journey, what got Soriano through it?
Prayers. I never talked to the Lord as much as I did when I was diagnosed. So, when it felt like the walls were crashing in, or where it felt like I couldn't breathe anymore, I just prayed to him for, I don't know. I mean, I know he knows what his plan is for me. Just give me the strength to get through this. And every time I got stronger, my faith got deeper, and that it lifted my spirits.
And her support system through it all? Her family, her children, and most especially her husband Dean, who she says is the greatest.
On the days that I would worry, he would remind me, you're strong, and I remember one time he said, you just completed a half Ironman and you had the cancer already growing in your body. You're gonna be fine.
She said he was by her side for each chemotherapy treatment session that lasted anywhere from 6 to 8 hours.
He never wanted to leave my side. He was awesome.
She's also thankful to the team of doctors, staff, and everyone who helped her battle.
They just did a great job keeping me optimistic and keeping me comfortable throughout the whole process. It's when you have them believing that I can get out of this, it'll be a positive outcome. It just helps it helps lift my spirits.
After her last chemotherapy session, her doctor told her there was no signs of cancer in her body, but because there's a high chance of it possibly recurring, she's on preventative medication. She adds, since her diagnosis, her perspective of life has her appreciating and being grateful for everything.
The saying is, live in the moment. Don't sweat the little things. You only live once. It's never been more relevant.
And with October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, who does Soriano think pink for?
I think pink for all the pink warriors. All those who battled and lost, those who battled and beat it, and then those who continue to battle.
Jonagan Charfris, KUAM News.
And don't forget, on Friday, October 25th, we wear pink to honor our breast cancer survivors and those we've lost. Wear your pink and tag us to be featured on KUAM social media and Weekend Edition using the hashtag ThinkPinkGuam. And in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we are inviting you to be a part of a special tribute. Screenshot our template that you can find right now on our Instagram page and add a photo of you and your cancer warriors. Post it to tag your story. Post it to your story and tag at KUAM News. The submission deadline is Wednesday, October 23rd. I Care For invites the community to a special concert this week to benefit Ali Shelter. The nonprofit has been a beacon of hope for women and children in crisis since 1981. The concert, which will happen at Capitol Kitchen on Friday, also celebrates the 25th anniversary reunion for the other band, also known as DUB. KUAM caught up with the band's vocalist, Kevin Iwashita, to hear more about the event.
The band got together back in September of 1999, so it's been 25 years this year. And we're very excited to basically get the band back together for a great cause to help raise awareness and raise some funds for Ali Shelter. We haven't played in the last 10 years. I think the last gig we did was probably at Ralphie's 2014. So it's been 10 years. We've probably done like a few gigs here and there, but not without the actual members of DUB. We probably had like some substitutes come in and play guitar or play drums or play keys. But this time around, we're going to actually have most of the original members come back. There's a couple that just came back will be coming back from California. And so, yeah, we're arranging all of that to get it together so we can do this event for Ali Shelter.
The I Care For Ali Shelter benefit concert with DUB is this Friday, October 25th at 6:30 p.m. at Capitol Kitchen on Airport Road. Your ticket will include all-you-can-eat world-class barbecue and bottomless beer. For tickets, call Annabelle at 671-988-7950 or visit eventbrite.com. We also have the link to get tickets on KUAM.com. The new Grand Bazaar is now open at the Compadres Mall. A grand opening ceremony was held Saturday with Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and other officials attending the ribbon cutting. It's bigger and better with more than 120 stores available for shoppers. It's now under one roof as well, where you can find a seamstress, electronics, phone accessories, clothing, toiletries, school and home essentials, and more, as well as tax services and jewelry. Well, there's an innovative literacy program going on now in Barrigada as Ansalan Middle School has kicked off the We Read reading program, starting with a hype video featuring some notable Guamanians encouraging kids to enjoy the story. There's a link to the video on KUAM.com, by the way. In the Wildcats community, all students, teachers, administrators, counselors, and student aides will all be reading the book Freak the Mighty all year long and applying the story in their school experience as a family through next spring. Good luck to the Wildcats as you read together. Now for a look at your world at home. Here's a view captured from Ipao Beach Park.
My opponent raised the issue of minority contracting, 8A as it's called, something his party is trying to cut and something he's done nothing about. My view is it should be more about opportunity for every single person on Guam. A dad or a mom running a small business, trying to put their kids through college. Doesn't everyone deserve a shot? When one person rises, we all rise. I will work to expand hub zones, the most widely used preferential contracting on Guam. I'm Ginger Cruz, and I approve this ad.
Hey, Devontae.
Let me get a cantina chicken burrito in a bowl with that seasoned, slow-roasted chicken I like, please.
You have a golf course in your house?
I got a Taco Bell in my house, bro.
Where did it go? Where did it go? Oh, there it is.
Cheaters don't get chicken.
Huh?
Cheaters get no chicken.
I won't give him any.
Guam is an amazing place, but times have changed, eroding our values of respect and compassion, leading us to tear each other down. It's time to restore what we need the most, hope. Hope keeps us alive. It keeps us from giving up and leaving our island. Hope helps restore our faith in one another. Shelley Calvo brings the type of hopeful leadership that understands that as we build a brand new hospital, it's equally important to build each other up. Shelley understands that strengthening our economy is only as good as strengthening the ties that bind our community. Shelley will ensure that we live on an island where success is measured by the number of lives we improve. Shelley Calvo will introduce strong legislation and bring us great leadership, but more importantly, Shelley brings hope. On November 5th, please vote Shelley Calvo for Senator, number 3 Republican. Hope has arrived.
This is Shelley Calvo, and I approve this message.
Surprise! Bet you didn't expect to see this, but you know what? I am all dolled up courtesy of our friends at the Dolly House. Our girl, Rachel Davis, has a wonderful, wonderful event for you. It is Spook and Sparkle. That's coming up. Make sure to check KUM News or KUM.com/newsbites. Make sure to check that out. All right, the Women's Chamber of Commerce have an event for you as well. It is the Senatorial and Congressional Forum. It is happening on Thursday, October 24th, starting at 5 in the afternoon. Make sure to hit up GuamWomen'sChamber.com for tickets. Get your pink on with the 13th annual Guam Community. All right, that is the key word, Community Breast Cancer Awareness Wave. We're all going to be at the ITC intersection in Tamuning on this Friday, October 25th, starting at 4 in the afternoon. We will be waving. If you're driving by, please honk, show your support, because we are supporting warriors, survivors, caregivers, families, the entire system of care. And the Marianas Business Network are presenting a special forum on tax law, avoiding CNMI and IRS tax issues. Very, very important for business owners to make sure to get involved with that. Did I mention I am super psyched already for Halloween? And once again, shout out to our girl, Rachel Davis, over at the Dolly House, dollyhouse.com. Make sure to check them out. Destiny and Nick, what do you think? Huh? Pretty good, huh? Huh?
Pretty good there, Jace. Ready for the spooky season. Now to your Cold Stone Creamery Birthday Club shoutouts submitted on KUAM.com.
Happy birthday to Tori Brianne Cruz, and happy birthday to you. You've grown into such an amazing and beautiful young woman. We love you so much, even the boy. Have a great time celebrating your special day. Love your family. One of our own, our family member, Jacob Sablan, Jake the man, is celebrating a birthday today. So Jake, we hope you have a fantastic day. And a belated birthday wish going out to Sharma Chargaloff, my daughter, my first heartbeat. A very blessed and happy birthday with many more. We are so proud of you and miss you so much. Love your mom, Daryl, Kate, Lolo, Matt, your kids and nieces and nephews, and you're a unicorn. Make your mark on the world.
Happy birthday to all of you celebrating out there today. That's your primetime show. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Nick Delgado. Have a safe evening.
KUAM TV8, first on Guam.
Mafanaguzo de julio 25, 1934, gida hagatnya. Si patera na tiempo manasaga man vicino ama sa hagatnya. Togay. Si tar remedion agon, mafananan sa remedion kizo. Guama zamko, e secondo si adi matay na silo si Eduardo, John McDonald Calvo. And then mas hobin at si Lou, si Gerald Tomas McDonald Calvo. My mother's maiden name was Veronica Mariano McDonald. Her mother was Dolores Kitugua Mariano, and her father was John Francis Creeley McDonald. And she was born in 1913. If you're passing through O'Brien Drive, there's a step which doesn't go all the way up, because halfway up, going up toward the governor's place, is their house, the McDonald house. This is known as Togay before the war, but now everything is Hagatnya. My father was born in Aganya on June 30th, 1909. He was born in a house that now where the Governor's Garden apartment is. That was where my grandparents were staying, a house before the war. So he was one of 13 children, and he was number 4.
It was Adela Macias, and then Ismael Calvo, Trinidad Calvo, Eduardo Calvo, and then Herminia Calvo Macias later on, because she married her brother-in-law when her sister died. And then my mom, and then Flora Cepeda, and then Ricardo Calvo, and then Angelina Brown, the one that was married to James Butler, and then Carlos.
His mother is Regina Martinez Torres, and his brother Vicente Martinez Torres is married to a Tomasa Perez Calvo, and they were living on what is now where the dialysis is. By the way, that's the place where all 3 of us, me and my late brother Eddie and my brother Jerry, were all born. Gimantis na mege na guma no atov niya na no ida agentisin no guana di teha giba mami no pre kusina kwatu na pada guaha no sin no pinateha dari kusina no sina na da bula lo no hagun na no atov na sino nahu dan si tataho gaigi gisalitsan na banda hamina dos dan si Eddie gaigam Garilia, gigi mafana dan si Sara, si pamilya Rosario. Gagigi aja na guma. No manasagam gui dan umbihan iti ang tataho si Tomasa Perez Calvo. Si Baha inagang si Batsa na. Matay si Asaguanas bidalaan. Kwa si orthopedic science atay famagod si Esperanza at Saigwa. Pada hutong ibata lang por gagi des basaga gwi siya ansa gigi banda gwi na hihud gi kusina kulang wahu no kiriduna gwi biha sa tao kiriduna pues to tempo na kulang mas mate tindi. My mother was very much a home person. She just wants to be at home. When she got married, she never went to finish her high school, and so she rules the house. And she rules my father when he's at home. She's a pretty strong woman. And of course, my father was a pretty strong man, too. My father was a banker. He worked for the Bank of Guam. And so he usually hands his check over to Ba. When they got married, it wasn't too long, but that changed. and the check is actually in the possession of Mom. I learned very well to be obedient and try to do as much as I can. If I must confess, I think my brother Eddie got more spanking than I did. But all my mother was to say, just wait until your father comes and we'll know what to do with this. Even if me and Eddie were having a disagreement. We both got it if we don't stop right there and then. He was strict. I mean, he was loving and strict, but when he asked you to do something, that's most of those that are, because the Spanish have a lot of influence, and Ba makes sure that he's very much into his religion, into his church, but at the same time, he's a fair person. He really believes that you treat your fellow man the way you want it to be treated. And so he was very fair in that, very honest, and he would like to help and all that. But he also does have a temper, so that if he's angry, you would know that he's angry.
What do you remember of Agana?
It's a beautiful city. Pero Martínez, antes de guerra, toda era comerciante más que en este Pedro. Daí decía, você nasce bonito, tu decía, castillo, castle.
Hafamohan mo na bonito Agana estaba?
Maulig salam, kulan español, na izonyano, tesme. Aduma sa mangi espada como igual.
Mano naman eskwela hamzu?
You door hole. There's a door hole here. Eu gosto de fazer plaza. No, kada ma fada da di post office da. Igual, vou fazer do que escola, ele risco, do post office sa papa. Ado se so. Per mane sa hiu ta des tipo gagege plaza di espada. Per guarda il bife da mas do no sagwan siya di pas da door hole kaya ganun. Sandok umalong ciudad kini. In fact, it's an incident, an occasion kanado matay na. Agad niya na este pagod na kaya itatita paseo di sana. Puro guida tempo no pinat honong na. Puro do siya no violenza, man mo bulldosa agad niya na. Kaya dam, ado gato pagi punta tagi sa kata dari para gato kisado. Pues mambisino na lo kini dan siya budazo. Sa no batumam na si defunto dalo budazo. Pues mau pusam ne da. Adi na balu americano ne. Adi dam ne. Bula na sta kandi wa huisa ne. Pues hamian si dano no. Te tumo si na hosti pada. Saudade mana gagan ramane, but it's too late para apa. Pues bawa pusam ni pe. Tapi punyat, tiger, flashlight, candy, and one fifty. Budak idam ni. Da mai pina, tingin na ani, sen mai pin. Pues, again na this tipo di basin. Wah, no. Ina si daru ito mak kututu no mangun ina ambi bula reinforcing rod man laki hilane miga ganza adi wigi domoneda ta basa plasada pues guida no malo magada kulan mangun naihun no tinuag betu gisadong wow no so que estilo malofan un bapur situ zaman matinas no da con eso. Pues, ado no tungo taimano de near death. Sa uli ya. Kadaluli si Manuelan Salas. Nasa waganis da akututu si sinaw. Kulan sila po kati. Kulan nesta no. Pues no. Sensiti na guasya no. Nesta na guasta pa ako ulilya. Nesta na tauto na. Palug Boy Scout. Nabat ina malago si Dano daman organ na judo. Da svetina sa walo ki kam gini na di di inalo americano. Pues ma. Nabat boto no pada 12 by 40 upside down do alak mo siya. Pues no pulis ni siya fina portion no kana baba. Jerry was a baby when Guam was invaded. He was born in July 20th, 1940. We were invaded by the Japanese. We were sleeping, and I think my parents were going to, because 8th of December, the feast of the Immaculate Conception. So they went to Mass. And I think the priest tell them to go home because Sumai was being bombed. And so all we know is we were sleeping and they woke us up to run to go to our ranch. Our ranch is where we're staying now, because that was my mother's cousin was tending to what we call our ranch, Carlos Mariano Santos. Another relative of my mother, the Marianos, they have a place up in the Radio Brigada, Adacao, they call it Adacao Brigada. And so we went up there. And it was there that we stayed until everything was settled down when we were visited by the late Mr. Shinohara. We are related to him because Shinohara is married to a tourist, and to tell us that you better go down to Agana, telling to my parents, and have a pass. In other words, because if you don't wear a pass, you might be hurt.
見よと海の空来て食いふじと価格こみ焼き場戦士な戦士はちゅらちゅと希望アドラおやしばお
What does that mean?
It's a marching song, and then they let us look to the north and the national anthem.
君がよさされ
There's somebody that came. There was some Chamorro, but are sympathizers from Saipan or the Buko and Si Martin. Right after we were starting, we were staying in Maite. They came, he came with a Japanese, I don't know, an officer, a soldier, accompanying them, because they speak Chamorro. And they came to my house, so we went out. So as soon as they were coming, the kids told us, so we stayed up, but we were peeking out. And it was my mother and my father. So the Japanese soldier looked up at the coconut tree. So I said to my father, in other words, so the interpreter told them he wanted my father to climb up and get a coconut for him. My mother said, my uncle Charlie McDonald, and they were living with us also in my Uncle Charlie, go. The Japanese said, no, the one's my father. And she said, no. Then the Japanese said, instead of, my God, we were just watching, instead of the Japanese being angry, he started to laugh. So finally my uncle, Chow, didn't write. He took a Fusinos and got the coconut down. But you can see my mother, she was quite a fighter. Then, when the Americans were coming back, the bombardment, the ship in the day, pum 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 pum. American planes were in the daytime, and on the nighttime it's the cannon from the ship. So we went up to Maymay, they call it, which is behind Father Reyes High School. That's where we stayed when the Americans started coming back. And I remember it because I took my grandmother to see her comadre. So my uncle Jim, he hitched the Bakar Atilong, in other words, the black cow, and he told me to drive my grandmother to see her comadre, and told me, "Esta si guaca, muga madiron si guaca sa no balamanya." So I took Ma, and we went. It was less than 2 hours that I just kind of I didn't just sit there, but I just went around, looking around, wait for Ma to... Then when we're coming back, there's an incident that happened. When I was coming back, this is before we got to where the church is, the Pongo church is. Anyway, I was driving the Bacanatilon, and I look up, and I say, "Hey Ma, ibu Teza, atana ibet ko na rin." It was a plane dropping bomb, and then I heard, "Hey Ma, atana." I turned around, Ma's already running into the chapel, the little chapel. And so Ma said, "No, bomb azu? Balagol, mga azu, mosta, balmanu." I hear, udis onsi baka. As afraid as I was, you know, and I rode on the cow all the way back to where we are. And to tell my Uncle Jim, I told him the story that si Ma night, ti balago mano, por saga agbi ki for the major. In other words, upolo agbi si Ma dani kareta na. Pas vida tumulya di kumori si Ma. So we stayed there until we march from there to Manyengan. And from Manyengan, you know, we walk over the mountain to Agat for, after the invasion, when we were asked to. I pitied my wife because, all we had to do is walk from there down to up to Jonya, and then as you come down to Jonya, that's where it turned into Manyengan. So our walk was only that. My wife had to walk all the way from Jigo. And then, but they rested, and we rested too, because that's a long walk that we did.
On the good ship, lollipop, it's a sweet trip to a candy shop where bonbons.
And what fair is complete without a children's parade?
Lemonade stands everywhere, Cracker Jack spends, belly air, and there you are, happy landing on a chocolate bar.
Since Marozo, kada mas di Ronyu, kada Ronyu mana, adi pabe approach sa ni palan ni, pabe agak atan, kita magagam si Ronyu atan kuatu si Rosa. Though I didn't have the nerve to approach her, ni, pues ani waktu tati ni, kinin sister, I went as a freshman to GW, pues uliliag si Rosa ni. Pues un viaje de a mí me filham para wall Bahmin's plywood. Si Vicente Calvo, con la coccanusti, noto brigada. Si bafanan si plywood. Si gogisan me na. Da si plywood gisantati da pag gigimini gimenu gigi pumptin na. Then si hepo. Istiges di tanah sih sedikit di zenzamuna titis na pelad atana atan tatis si Rosa ne lugar di that's an opening upani titis sidamnya si play with the barong tu lo pues si hasuriku si testasti esta malangmus esti tinsidenteko.
I first met him, I saw him actually, I was going to school at GW, George Washington High School. I was lining up, to drink in the fountain. And way up, I saw somebody. I don't even know him. until later on. I found out that was Paul Calvo. Somebody yelled and said, "Hey, Paul, is that the girl that you said you liked back there? I saw him ran." I said, "Oh my God," to myself, "Oh my goodness, he ran away."
Zo malo?
Zo malo si Paul, very, very. So he was telling me, "It's so hard to approach me." I said, "Why?" So from there on, I don't see him at all.
Pues guane gui tableto gui sa consitane da sinyo matatsum ne gui. Pues tu guane sta so ma mo rosa para di papre para homemaking o gagi sa papa gui ne gida GW. Pues unan tu guane malolo fan gui. Pues kolo do matatsum gui ne. Sta pues con la license sa no con la ormantiu ti malolo fan ne. Pues ane malo fan sta mon mangalopio ma lo hongan ne. Leku malago to be kane libro mo. No, tada lenya no ya do ne. Pues tu tatidia ne. E no atu ne.
He already knows where you walk from one class to another. That was a concert hall here, GW. So I was walking to drink water, and Paul was sitting on top of, those concert huts. He was sitting up there, and then when I passed, he jumped down and he asked me to carry my books. So I gave him my books. That's how I became acquainted with him. Started talking, following me to go down to my other class, another concert hall. So, okay, he gave me my books, and he asked me, do I have any chance? I said to him, I'll let you know tomorrow. Really? I said, I'll let you know tomorrow. Sure enough, the following day, he asked me again. I said, oh, sure. So that's how it started. We meet and talk only at school because my father was very strict. You know, those days, they don't let you go out so I only see Paul in school, and that's it. We talk, and that's it. We don't date. No such thing as dating. So we became acquainted, and then became boyfriend, girlfriend. He was here just for 1 year. Then he left. He went back to Texas for high school. We communicate, during those days. There was no phone, and we just write to each other. Paul writes to me a lot, but with me, I was so busy and got tired of writing and writing. So I gave him a Dear John letter. It really hurts. He was telling me. When you're still young, you like to mingle with other people, right? Long distance relationship, really, it's not a wise idea. Well, but
did you date anyone while he was gone?
Friends, of course. After we broke up for maybe a year or two, after graduation here from high school, I went to college, the Territorial College at that time. It was only a 2-year program. So I went to a full-time college. Then on my second year, because I took education, I was teaching, like a student teacher, and then this is for my second year of college. At night time, I go to class. Daytime, I was teaching. It was so hard, really, very hard. For that summer, my auntie took me to the States to attend my sister's graduation. My older sister, Catalina, she graduated from Ann Arbor, Michigan as a nursing student. So my auntie took me. From here, we ended up in LA, and Paul came over and met me in LA, and so we connect each other again. That was vacation time, so maybe he was in, because they have a house in Mountain View. Anyway, so he drove us from LA with my auntie, from LA to San Francisco to drop us at the airport, and with my auntie Felisa. So that was it. Then we started communicating again. Then when I came back from Ann Arbor, Michigan, we met at the airport, and that's when he proposed to me. Right there, he said to me, remember what we said when we were going out, that one of these days we'll get married? I said, yeah, I think so. So really, that summer, when we came back here in 1956, we got married. Because, you know, I don't have my mother. It was just my dad and my aunts. Everything was arranged by his family. My dress, everything. The reception. That was so nice of them. Oh, here's another thing. I was very late, about maybe half an hour late. I was waiting for my father. I think my father maybe to take me up to we got married at St. Jude in St. Anna. So somebody called me down and said, Rosie, they're waiting for you. I didn't realize the time. I was still fixing my hair. So my father took me up, but he did not walk. It was my uncle who walked me in. You know, the groom is not supposed to meet me, no, to meet you down at where the car were. But Paul went down and met me at the car and walked me in. He was not supposed to be there, but anyway, I was so late. They were so nervous. His birthday was on the 25th. We got married on the 28th. And I never knew his birthday. I didn't even say happy birthday, or because I didn't know his birthday. So we got married on the 28th at 7 in the morning. And Paul was sick. We were supposed to be staying somewhere here in a small quonset. And this was right after the wedding. His mom was right there, putting Vicks, putting Vicks on this sick boy. So we stayed here for maybe like a week, and then we left. We went back to California for him to finish his schooling. I just stayed home and take care of the house. They have a house there. It's an old house in Mountain View. Yeah, we lived until he graduated from Santa Clara. Eddie and Francis were there, and Ancha. A lot of people were staying in that house, so they put us up in the attic. A lot of people. No honeymoon. Eddie moved back to KUAM, Eddie and Francis. Everyone went. So it was just us, the two of us, in a big house. It's an old house, and sometimes you hear cracking. You know, it's an old house. It was scary. Yeah, being by yourself in an old house.
What did you do during the day?
Nothing. Oh my goodness. It was good because Auntie Peping de Palomo, Josephine is Grandma's sister, Josephine Palomo. So she lives close by, so she was always checking on me because, you know, I was all by myself. And I get so lonely by being by myself all day, because when Paul goes to school in the morning, he comes home late. Then I became pregnant with Vera, my oldest one. In fact, Vera attended the graduation of her dad. It was so nice. From there on, we moved back to KUAM. We live here, and then we started working with Chick Whitfield as a car salesman. From there to Calvis Insurance. I was so busy with taking care of my Vera. my oldest one. Then I became pregnant. I had babies almost every year, so I was so busy with my own thing at home. I got so sick, vomiting and...
Every time?
Oh yeah, vomit. That's why as I said, 3 doctors told me to quit. I get so sick, very skinny. Yeah, I had a hard time. So yeah, that's my role, being a full-time mother. We usually hire people to help me in the house. They don't last long. They don't last long, let me tell you, especially with the boys. The boys are, you know, with the girls, they just play with their dolls, but the boys fighting and running around, they're so different, those 2 boys.
Did they fight a lot?
Oh yes, of course. Kathy was very tough. Kathy was my tough one too. She fights with them. The 2 boys, they don't like to go to school. So every morning, my husband had to go and call Jerry to come over and help him because they go under the bed. They're hiding. They were hiding. They don't want to go. So Paul had to go, come on, brother, come and help me, because to take them out of under the bed to go to school. They don't like to go to school. The boys are the hardest one because, you know, they are so different. The girls are more with their dolls, and you can talk to them, and but you know, my husband was very helpful, very, very good father.
Why did you tell them, wait till your dad comes home?
To scold you, but not to spank. I just pick up my slipper and I go like this, wait until your father comes. You know, I don't like to spank. Paul, he spanks. Sometimes I cry, I don't like to see spanking. But I guess with boys, they need, I don't know, some kind of punishment. But yeah, it was rough, but we're blessed. Look at them now, they're so wonderful. They're always checking, you have food to eat, can I get you something? Yeah, it's nice to have a big family. We're blessed, really. Coming from a small family, there are only 3 of us, and Paul has only 3, so it's nice to have a big family.
Who is more like their father of all your kids?
Maybe Eddie. My son Paul, quiet, right? Eddie's more blah, 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 talkative.
Maybe that's why he's the governor.
Yeah, they're my boy.
I compare my son Eddie to my father, because my father is, in terms of his natural intelligence, and Ed in terms of with his sibling, when they kind of stumble on things. Hey, let's ask Ed. You know, at one point in time, Eddie, he wanted to memorize the encyclopedia.
How did Paul interact with the children?
You mean my husband?
Yes.
Well, he was very helpful with. He gives them a bath, the 2 boys. He gives bath to the 2 boys and take care of the girls. He was very helpful to me. And then, of course, Eddie, he doesn't like to eat. Paul was very patient, my husband. He goes after Eddie with the spoon. Eddie, 1, 2, 3, Eddie, open your mouth. He had to force Eddie because Eddie doesn't like to eat. And he's so skinny, he was very skinny. Look at him now.
He was a skinny guy, little guy. And so I used to feed him, you know. He's very choosy about what he would not eat eggs because he knows where it's coming from and how it comes about. So I mean, and one thing about my son is he's a very religious, and you know, we're all human, but he tries to abide by the good book. So my father started out from a very, very low position at the bank and rose to being the highest local man. My father has always been very disturbed by the treatment sometimes that we are being treated as natives, because he sees that people that are newcomers, even hired newcomers, are being paid very low wages. Some say coolie wages, whereas those that are coming in are getting better pay. So, and it came up in the Gazeta that he's saying that he was very, that, you know, we are being paid very low wages. And when he said that, you know, everybody was raised except him. And that's how the company started, because my father at that time was handling insurance, and primarily for the bank. And the bank primarily at that time was marine insurance, and that's not too many people have automobiles. In fact, since they have stores with his brothers in San Antonio, pretty close to where the bridge is right now, they only have one Dodge, and they take turn driving it. It wasn't until our neighbor, Dr. Lionel Weaver, I still remember his name, he was a naval officer, and they have a car. And so when he left the island, because in preparation for, I guess they're already seeing World War II coming, my father, he had a car, so my father bought that car. Then we had a car just before the war. So that's how my father started his business, when he quit the bank and concentrate strictly on, and he was operating out of our living room, where, like I said, where the dialysis right now is where we live. That's how he started. In fact, he hired our neighbor, one of the daughters there, Lourdes, was his secretary. And of course, my mother was helping too. And so that's how Calvo's Insurance started. Of course, representing AI, at that time it's not AIG, it's AIU, American International Underwriters. So I was only 4 years old when my father started that business.
It was my uncle Eduardo Calvo, by the way, that was instrumental in getting my father the agency to start Carbolito's Insurance Agency. My father, before that, was working for George O'Keefe. George O'Keefe, I don't know if you remember the name, he was married to Lena Velarde, who just passed away just recently. Okay, my dad and George were very good friends for some reason. And George started Global Insurance Company on Guam. He was a very innovative, pragmatic man. He was a good businessman. He got Mrs. Butler, or Auntie Butler. I believe he got Don Pedro and Ada. He got some of the big business people, except Uncle Eduardo, to invest in this insurance company that he started in Aniguac, right across the governor's place there, right at the corner there. I remember it very well. And he asked my father, I think my dad was working for, I think my father was the director of revenue and taxation at that time. And he asked my father if he could come and work for him as the general manager of Global Insurance. And my dad said, sure, paid him good money. And so my dad worked for George O'Keefe for a while until the old man Calvo was offered the Capital Insurance and Surety Company of Manila to represent that, for Calvo to represent that company on Guam, the general agent. And Uncle Eduardo couldn't do it because of AIU. You know, he'd been with AIU for many years then, and he wasn't going to jeopardize that relationship. So he said, but I have a good man, I can't do it, but I have a good man that can do it for you. And he thought of my dad. So he mentioned it to my father. My dad said, yeah, it sounds like an opportunity for me. So they went to the Philippines, and Uncle Eduardo introduced my dad to the principles of Capital Insurance. And they were impressed enough. They said, okay. And that was the start of Carbolito's Insurance. Carbolito's was not the forerunner for Calvo, no, on the contrary. Then Eddie Calvo came to a trip to San Francisco, and he was going to see the freight forwarder who was sharing an office with Jones and Guerrero in San Francisco. He saw me in my office, and he said, "Primo, what are you doing here?" And I said, "I work here, Primo." He said, for Jones?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Hey, listen, you know, my brother Paul is planning on running for governor." This is 1973 then. "And, you know, we need somebody here in the States to run his campaign." And at that time, the election code was that if you had the intention of returning to Guam, okay, you can vote. It doesn't matter whether your intent is 25 later on.
One day in your life.
He's right. So they offered me the job. So he and Ken Jones made a deal that I will end the year 73 with J&G in San Francisco, and I will start January 1 for Calvo in the States. And I opened up my office as a campaign office. And when Paul lost that election, Eddie decided to keep the office open as a purchasing office then. And so I did it. I had a staff, a warehouse, and we did the purchasing for PCC at that time. And then they acquired Pepsi from Ken Jones. I did the purchasing for that. Then they acquired the Payless Markets from Jones. I did the buying for that. The theaters, I did all that purchasing for them. 31 years. Then I retired in 2005. So it's been a nice, joyous, profitable ride for me with the Calvos. I enjoyed my tenure with them.
I just always had great respect for Governor Calvo and for his brothers and for the dad whom I never met. And right now, as we're recording this, Calvo's Insurance is celebrating 80 years of service to the community. Bank Pacific in July will be celebrating 65 years. So again, it was just that those guys recovering from post-World War II, when things were booming, there was so much opportunity, and there was that small group of entrepreneurs who latched onto it. You know, he was one of the original members of the Bank Pacific's board of directors back when we were Guam Savings Loan, and when we opened up in 1954, and Governor Calvo was one of our members because he came. You know, he's the son of Jake Calvo. Jake Calvo, one of the pioneers. Jake I never met, but he was one of my grandfather's buddies. You know, there was a gang. There were the Martinezes, the Calvos, my grandfather, and some Frank D. Perez, King Guerrero, and because I look at my grandfather's investments, so many of them were with the same people. And in fact, he was I think, with the Calvo family, with the theaters. And I believe the Calvo family had shares in Mariana's Finance. So they swapped that. They did that in the early 70s, because I can remember when that happened. The good thing about the Calvo family is it's transcended down from Jake Calvo to Governor Calvo and his brother Eddie and his brother Jerry, and they were all business people. And now that Jerry's passed on, he's given some to his children. Of course, Eddie's passed on, and you see John and Champ, and even their children out there all the time. And Governor Calvo, with Paul Jr., and Kathy, the family, get involved. And one thing that always strikes me about the Calvo family, the Governor Calvo's family, is when they see him, the children, when they see him, they're not children. They're grown up. But when they see him, especially when Paul Jr. sees him and such, Governor Eddie sees him, they kiss him. And I think that's just wonderful. You know, they give me a kiss, hi dad, on the cheek, something like that. Because when my son Rocco's here during the summer, or whenever I see him, I kiss him all the time on the forehead. And he's not embarrassed. If I was doing that, going in and kissing my dad all the time, I'd be embarrassed. But no, that's how close they are. And they say what the first generation makes it, second generation, blah, blah, third generation spends it, whatever it is. That's not happened with the Calvos. It's not happened with Governor Calvos. They have a very good plan. It's not just Kathy and Paul. I mean, Mike Benito, the son-in-law, he's right in there at Payless, and he does other things too. And I think Governor Calvo realized that you can be a politician, you can be a business person. But after he served as governor, he said, okay, I'm going to be a business person. And he put himself back into the Calvo Enterprises. At that point, it was the three brothers running the companies. And yeah, I remember when he got back into the companies, because we'd had a property that his father was a part owner, Andrew Gale was a part owner, my grandfather was a part owner. My grandfather since had already passed away. And he came over and we negotiated, and I bought his interest out, and it wasn't a lot, but he was just going in there, consolidating all the companies again after being governor for 4 years and putting his influence back into the enterprises again. I think he wanted just to serve his people. His brothers were more full-time business people, especially Eddie. But again, when he got out of politics and he jumped back into the company, you could see the differences that changed from his influence on the family business. He was very, very stable. His brothers were stable, but the governor is very stable. In 1992, commercial sanitation was the only hauler, the Kaplan brothers. And that's when land was going bonkers out here. And people were buying dirt as though it was gold. And a Japanese company bought commercial sanitation for the real estate, not for the operation. And they weren't operators. So the operation went down quickly. And within a year, 2 years, garbage was not being picked up. One of our buildings had a restaurant in it, still does. They were getting cited for health violations because garbage wasn't getting picked up. I got together with some friends and we started KUAM Waste. Governor Calvo and his brothers got together with Raul Mandabami and started Mr. Rubbish Man. And so we went at each other, for like 6 or 7 years. And finally I phoned up Mr. Raul one day, and who was also a wonderful man. I phoned up Mr. Raul one day and said, we're fighting each other. We both of us have taken an equal share of the market, and it's 90% of the market. Let's merge. So that's when I really got to know Governor Calvo well, not just during the negotiations, but during our first years of operations. And we clashed a little bit just as we were learning, and it was inevitable. And then, we melded and started what today is a tremendous company. And the synergy we got from combining, I wish I could do that every day with different companies. It was tremendous. But then I got to know Governor Calvo, and I got to see the full-time business side of him when I was dealing with him, and he's always been on the board, and it's been a wonderful experience. And the respect that I had for Governor Calvo in 1999 is nothing. It was great, but nothing compared to the respect I have for Governor Calvo in 2018. Governor Calvo he's a skilled negotiator. He's dealt with head of state, he's dealt with the governors, he's dealt with the legislature, and that's when we had 21 people he had to deal with. He's a good negotiator. But we both knew, everybody at the table knew what we wanted to do and what it would bring. So it was very, very fair. It's kind of like the old thing, well, I would have paid more. And the fellow said, well, I would have sold for less. So they're both happy. And so by the time we merged, and then you're dealing with attorneys and all that, but that's just bureaucratic red tape to make sure you do it properly. By the time we merged and had 12, 18 months in our pocket of operating together, he was my partner.
So it was a good deal.
Yeah, it was a very good deal, yeah. One of the fun things about working with the governor is whenever I see him, it's no longer, hey, Governor. When I get to see Governor Calvo, it's, hey, partner. And we give ourselves a class, the bro. And it's fun. I mean, so if I see him at Payless, we do it. If I see him at a function, we do it. So he's no longer Governor Calvo to me in the sense that he will always be Governor Calvo. But now he's partner. And to be able to be partner with Governor Calvo, it's rewarding. It's really, it's wonderful.
I first joined Calvo Enterprise in 2001 as the Chief Financial Officer for this company. And that was my first daily interaction with Governor Paul Calvo. And that was the beginning of a long relationship. Fortunately, my father was the controller, was the CFO at Calvo Enterprise many, many years ago. And my father had passed away in the 90s. And there was a long gap in between. So when I retired in 2001, It was fortuitous. I met Eddie Calvo, and Eddie Calvo talked to me about if I'd be interested in joining the company. And so I said I was definitely interested. And that began a discussion, and I think he spoke with his brother Jerry and then with Governor Calvo, and they hired me. And as soon as I got on board, I realized that Eddie Calvo was the executive vice president, and Jerry Calvo was another vice president, and Paul Calvo was the man, was the president.
Did you have a different perspective before you went in?
I always, I never knew who was. I always knew that the three of them ran it together, but I never knew really what the hierarchy was. And I found out real quick.
How did you find that out?
Because, well, I saw the organizational chart when I was hired, and then I realized that he was the president and chairman.
Was that organizational chart an application as it was intended to be?
Yes, it was. It was here. It was. The three brothers would still decide collectively when it's a big decision. The signatures always would be the president. You know, if we're going to get a loan, we're going to purchase something, it would have been the president. But I think the three brothers, any major decision, they would have arrived at some consensus, you know.
Did they ever not arrive at a consensus?
I think many times.
And what happened then?
And then I think they would discuss it and someone would prevail, whoever had the most compelling argument, you know, on it, and that's the direction we would go.
And how long would something like that take if they disagreed?
Not long, not long. They would resolve things very quickly over here. Yeah, the three brothers were pretty good at that.
That's a lot to say about them.
Yes, yes.
So there was not one ego that was larger than the other?
There always were. There's always that. But what I'm saying is that they worked it out. They always worked it out. And they always came to an arrangement, you know, with, there's always logic. And, you know, someone's always going to have a better argument for something, and that logic would prevail.
How are the brothers different?
Okay. Let me use the words of Paul Calvo. He says, I'm the diplomat. My brother Eddie is the fighter. My brother Jerry is the most lovable. He was like a magnet. He just attracted people, and he was very friendly, and people would be open to him. His brother Eddie was a very good businessman. By saying fighter, you know, you're not going to get one over him when you negotiate. He was the diplomat. Governor was the diplomat because he became the governor. So he was the one that could, I guess, walk around and bring compromise. So maybe that's the answer to your question.
So he will bring them together?
Yeah, yeah. He's very intense under pressure, and he's very focused on it, and he won't let up until that's resolved. And that's why earlier we talked about when there's conflicts or disagreements, why they're resolved relatively quickly. It's because of that. It's because he focuses on it, and he's so intense in it that he won't let it go until it's resolved. Some people work, they love to go to work, and their life is their work. And some people go to work for their lives, for their family, and Paul Calvo's like that. He goes to work for his family. You know, his work is not his life. His family is his life. Everything he does is for his family. We have a few companies under our belt. We have Calvo's Insurance. We have Pepsi Cola Bottling Company of Guam is another one. There's Title Guarantee of Guam, which is another company under. We have some joint ventures. For example, we have something we call MCSL. And this company, we are joint with another company on Guam, and we lease out a building next to Home Depot for the FBI and ICE. That's one. We also have some things up at Two Lovers. We have an operation up there, and then we contract out with someone to have some refreshments and food items up there.
How did you get in the Two Lovers Point venture?
Two Lovers Point, that was before I came here. It was a joint venture with the government and the Calvos. The government didn't have any money to promote or fix up two lovers. So they got into a public-private partnership. This is under, I think it was Lieutenant Governor Berdalio at the time, under Governor Gutierrez. She was in charge of beautification back then, and I think she started some public-private partnerships all over Guam, and one of them was with the Calvos on two lovers. So, and it works well for the government because it's a government facility. There's all those tourists that go over there, but it's basically maintained by us. So government gets a good deal out of that one.
What do you get out of it?
We also have the overlook. So that's ours. That's part of Calvo Enterprise. So whatever visitors go on that site, we charge there also.
You have a new pavilion.
That new pavilion, what we do is we've actually contracted that out. So while there is something there, it's not really a Calvo Enterprise. It's for light refreshments, yeah. That's all it is.
Nice place to go and watch the sunset.
It's a beautiful place to watch the sunset or sunrise. You go there. They have some tours. They make arrangements to go up there. And if you want to have a big party or something, we could probably arrange something like that. We have a self-storage facility that we've started. But the primary focus of our business here in the enterprise is real estate. So we rent buildings and property out there.
How did your father feel about working for Calvo Enterprise?
I think he liked it. My father worked in the government also. He was a director, and then when he retired, he came to Calvo Enterprise, and he worked here until he died. So he died in 1992, but he worked here all the way until he passed away. Never retired, so he must have liked it too.
Do you ever get compared to your dad?
All the time, but we're very different. We're very different.
In what way?
I think I went to college. My dad did not, so I think we're different in that way.
Principle versus practice?
I think principle's the same. I think for us, it's always honesty is important. You know, we want to do the right thing always. That dictates how you do. How you make your decisions. And I think that's what made it easy here, because I think Paul Calvo is exactly the same way. You know, if this is the right way to do it, then this is the way we go. So he is a friend. He is my boss. He's my superior. He's I'm not related to him, but I consider him like family because of the way he's treated me, and I think he does that not just with me. I think that he does that with pretty much everyone that he meets. His family was always so important. I mean, his family, everything that he does is about family. His work, everything is about family. Honesty. It's important for him to be honest in everything that we do and in his dealings. And I know that he gets bothered when he feels that things are not right, and he'll go out of his way to make things right. So honesty is very important to him. He's a very religious man. One of his favorite sayings is, "We are in the favor of the Lord." You know, whenever something good happens, he doesn't credit himself. He credits the Lord, and so that kind of tells you about the kind of person he is. He's a very caring person. He's sympathetic to people we have people from all walks of life that come over asking for many different things, from handouts to assistance, and everyone always gets attention. Their needs either get addressed or somehow we deal with them one way or the other. But it's important for him to not leave anyone hanging. So he cares for people.
Why have you stayed here so long?
It's a wonderful place to work. These people are caring. They really do. They're honest. We do good things for the island. So and I feel good about that. The company does a lot of good things for the people of Guam, and that's important to me as well. And despite the criticism that the company gets sometimes because of our size, because we are a large company, most of it is unwarranted, and we really do go out of our way to try to take care of people and be good business people to our community.
With so much good, why do you get criticized?
I think it's the nature of Guam. There's politics that's involved, and as everyone knows, the Calvo family is definitely involved in politics, and politics makes for conflict sometimes. I think when there's a political attack at times, that may be directed at the governor or not necessarily us here at Calvo Enterprise because we are associated with the governor, some of that spills off on us. And that's what I mean by unwarranted.
My close relation with Paul Sr. really happened because when I was here, it was 1975, 76. We got hit with one of the largest storms the island has ever seen, and that was Typhoon Pamela. And from there, let me explain too. At that time, the Enterprise was right above us upstairs. So at that time, the Calvos were very, very involved in the insurance operations, as this being at the time, and still is, really, with a flagship company of the Enterprise. And basically, he would come down to me and talk to me and always told me, he said, in Chamorro, because I spoke Chamorro in the vernacular pretty well. I mean, well enough to communicate with a lot of our clients. And he always tells me, Adzuda iprokimusia, manama si tauto. So I started to believe that this product that we're selling over here meant something to them, that they had to go on ahead and basically service the client. They sold a product and they stood by the product, and we had to service it. So I was working with my brother all the way till 12 o'clock in the night. This whole area over here, the Guam Insurance Adjusters was across the street. There were people lining up. At the time, the structural integrity of the buildings in Guam were very compromised. They had concrete walls and everything, but they had a lot of corrugated tin roofs and things like that, and those all blew away. We had a storm that blew on top of us for 3 days. No water, no power, no nothing. People were under canopies and everything, and he would always come over, take care of our people, take care of our people. In the meantime, Eddie Calvo also, the late Eddie Calvo and Jerry Calvo were always coming to me with all their clients because we had the Chamorro book, and we still have that Chamorro book. And the main guy that was in this office with the whip was Mr. Henry Schnabel, because he was the general manager. And he would just come up. Well, with Henry Schnabel, really, I didn't get a name from him for a while, because I was noted when I first employed here as you. I didn't have a name. You come here, you do this, you do that. So I was wondering, well, what is this? Where am I at? Why am I not with my family business? And then Paul Sr. would come in, look and all that with Eddie and Jerry. Who is this? He said, and you know what he would say? We got another one of those Martinez kids again working for us, They have their own business, but they're over here again working for us, So, I felt, well, that was the protocol. And no, not really, but I was placed in a position where I was a neophyte. So I worked my way through, but it was just that really kept me in this company. It's how they believed in their product and how they basically wanted to help the people. They went on ahead and sold a policy, and they wanted it to perform. They wanted to help the people. So I was working with my brother till almost 12 o'clock in the nights, up and down. This whole area was full of people, and we felt sorry. They were with their kids and everything. The rain was on them. We were doing everything we could. I worked with Guam Insurance Adjusters because I knew a lot of the structural mechanics of a lot of these structures, and also the costing per square feet and damaged areas. So I was basically handling it from an adjustment and adjusting claims for them. And back and forth, people would be coming to me. And Eddie and Paul Sr., Jerry, and also Henry were referring a lot of claims to me because most of it was really Chamorro. And basically, I could speak the Chamorro pretty well because I was brought up in a family that spoke Chamorro as its main language, So I can communicate. But they would follow it up, And I started to believe, I said, man, I'm working for people who basically believe in this product, and people who service the product, and people who go out of their way to help the people of Guam.
Weren't they worried that all the claims would choke them?
Well, it's a very big company. It's just that the island at the time, you know, we're in the middle of nowhere. And that's what it is when you say at the time you're from Guam. They got to look at it in the globe and they can't seem to find it. But anyway, it was just bringing resources in is what the problem was. Huh? And a lot of these areas that were damaged were not very accessible at times. And the island was flattened. And you could see from one village to the other village almost, you know. But we were out there helping them and everything. And it started, developed that credibility. We started listening to people, talking to them, helping them out. We were even getting tents for them, helping them, whatever we can do, over and above what is really normal. And they would always tell me to look and do whatever you can to help these people. And with their kids and everything like that. So that was when that's probably the first time that I've ever encountered the Calvo brothers. And they walked around always just checking the business. They'll come here every day, make sure everything's good, and always go to Henry Schnabel because he was the guy running the operations and everything.
Was he as sympathetic to the situation, or was he the businessman?
He was both. He was very sympathetic, but he was also the businessman. He carried a whip. He told you what to do and how to do it, and you better come up with something. So I figured, man, you know, this is a pretty strict company I work for. But it was just their belief on the product. So as we went on in life and everything like that, I mean, I've always known Paul Sr. to be a very religious person. I mean, I seen him in church all the time. I see him in wakes, funerals, and everything, and he'd always be with his family, you know. He was, but I give Paul something that I've noticed, although he's, you know, Paul Calvo, he's the oldest in the family and everything, and so were the other brothers. They were all humble. And no matter how you look at it, being humble is a real virtue in life. And I felt that, you know, I'm really working for a company that I can expand on.
So when did you stop being you? When did you get a name?
Well, I got a name. Well, from you, I ended up as Ray, and then I got some kind of a title. But then again, you know, the titles that they gave me at the time, they asked me what kind of title you want, but we're not giving you a raise. So I said, Jesus Christ, I mean, you know, okay, though they promoted me and everything like that. In fact, one time I came in over here and I was going to go before the board. I said, man, Henry, and this already, I'm 20 years in the company. I said, Jesus Christ, Henry, would you go on ahead and give me some kind of an increase? Or I've been here for 20 years. He turns around, looks at me, says, yeah, but that's 1 year experience repeated 20 times. So I said, what is this? You know, I mean, there were many times when I thought maybe I should just go back and work for him. At the time, my brother now became the general manager at Bay Rose. I just liked the way the company operated.
There was something about the discipline that hung you, huh?
Yes, it was discipline. And not only that, you know, I started to learn that insurance is a very intricate form of business. They pounded that in my head. It's not just a buy and sell operation. You have to know the coverages. You have to know what you are selling. You need to know the servicing. And nobody wants to buy insurance. Anybody walking here doesn't have a smile. After they buy their new car, or they buy the house, all of a sudden they got to pay this premium now for insurance. So you never really had a smile or anything like that, but we treated our customers well.
But when they need to do a claim,
yes,
you're the one that's not smiling.
No, I did come with a smile. Of course, I'm happy to pay their claim because they paid us all that money, basically. See, we're managing general agents for the insurance company. It's really their money that we're paying out on it and we're servicing it. But we bend all we can for our clients, you know. And you know, to be straight up with you, I remember all these people way back during that time, and that's like maybe 40 some years ago. And a lot of them, God rest their soul, has passed away, huh? And I see now a lot of their sons coming in buying insurance. And I see now their grandkids coming in and buying insurance from the same family. Do you remember me? Do you remember that?
Third generation.
Yeah, third generation. So I'm saying, it's that I guess we really built a legacy of trust, like we always said, because they're still with us. They still trust us. So that name has really, in insurance, has come to a point where it has put us, I think, a cut above the rest.
Honey, do you want some milk?
Do you ever wonder how your favorite products make their way into your local stores? Most arrive on state-of-the-art Matson vessels that transport containers of food, household items, equipment, and supplies into the islands every week. Because we know that you depend on us, we work closely with our partners to ensure that our shipments arrive on time, all the time, so you can find your favorite products when you need them. We transport the region's most precious cargo that supports successful businesses and promotes a better quality of life for our families. Matson is proud to have been the hometown shipping carrier for Guam, the CNMI, and Micronesia for the past 25 years, and you can count on us to be here for generations to come.
Want a real taste of New York? The classic New York-style pizza offers a big, bold taste that's a Guam favorite. It's handmade with 16 inches of foldable crust, a sweet marinara sauce, and your favorite topping. And at 30% larger than our large, classic New York pizza is only $12.99 for carryout. Bring together your family and friends for a classic New York pizza party. Each pizza is just $12.99 for carryout. Classic New York-style pizza, so close you can taste it. Only at your island Pizza Hut.
I'm a guy that came from nothing, that has worked hard to get where I am. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to work hard. I know what it takes to get things done. I've helped our nation win wars. I've done many things in the community. This election is not about my next career. This election is not about a salary bump up from what I make. This election is about my kids. This election is about your kids. We need to help Guam. I want to work hard for them, and I want to work hard for everybody else and everybody that calls Guam home.
My name is Vince Borja, and I approve this message.
Guam's auto appearance specialist, Elegant Reflections, has been providing the automotive industry with professional detailing and car care products at its highest quality, from complete detailing, full interior detailing, exterior detailing, headlamp restoration, hand washing, seat and carpet shampoo, engine degreasing, undercarriage cleaning, paint sealant, fabric protection, paint oxidation removal, and so much more. Visit us at our new location. Call 646-5555 for an appointment. Elegant Reflections, Guam's auto appearance specialist, over 20 years of experience.
Something is calling, and I can't help it. Let's don't be wrong when there ain't no soul. Watch me as I go. This is my mood when I make a move.
place that has everything you're looking for without the extra stops? Kmart is the ultimate destination for saving time and money with unbeatable deals, all in one place. From groceries to personal and home essentials to the latest trends, everything you need is right here. For yourself, your family, your home. Find it all at Kmart, your destination for deals, where convenience, variety, and value come together. Make Kmart your one-stop shop today. Follow us on our social media and check out our website for weekly deals. Kmart, your destination for deals.
Get ready to haunt the Hyatt. The Guam Women's Club is throwing a hollow wine thriller that's sure to be a beautiful time. Join us on October 26th for a night of wicked wine, spooktacular spirits, and hauntingly good food. We've got a buffet that'll make your taste buds scream with delight, and a silent auction and raffle that'll have you dying to win. Your $75 ticket helps support the EMC Cancer Foundation, Bake Their Day, and the Guam Women's Club Grant Program. So, come dressed to impress in your favorite Halloween costume or just keep it casual. For tickets and more info, contact Joy Solis at 671-686-3328, Vicky Terlahi at 671-687-2455, Donna Kloppenberg at 671-777-2055, and Leo Giordano at 671-788-9977. Special thanks to our sponsors: Island Beverage Distributors, Hyatt Regency Guam, Island Color and Copy, IWS, Midpack Distributors, Nissan, Bank of Guam, SPPC, Kloppenberg Enterprises, Calvo Enterprises, Calvo Jacob Pangilinan LLP, Paradise Fitness, Coast 360, Sylvan Learning Center, Pacific Rim, Calvo's Insurance, Family Finance, Cassandra Castro, Copy Express, and Marianas Energy. Don't miss out on this ghoulishly good event. See you there.
Everybody, and it's a glorious day here in Anchorage, here in New York City. Hey, hello everybody, and I'm here in Houston, Texas.
Catch the brand new season of The Hoffany Show with Jay Martin every other Sunday night at 6 p.m. on CBS TV 11. Enjoy Jay Martin's fun adventure in this musical talk and travelogue as he travels around the world and interviews interesting personalities. The Hoffany Show with Jay Martin.
For grace, comfort, and rest from the struggles in life, join us for the celebration of the Catholic Mass. Experience a time of inspiration as we come together for Sunday worship and prayer.
Join Heart of the Nation for the celebration of the Catholic Mass, Sunday afternoons at 1:30.
For more information, visit heartofthenation.org.
Catch Health, Home, and Lifestyle every Tuesday following KUAM News Prime Time. We've got you covered with health and lifestyle news each Tuesday on the stations of KUAM and our digital streaming platforms. Health, Home, and Lifestyle is brought to you by the Medical City, your trusted partner in health.
Ace Auto Glass. Ace Auto Glass is Guam's full-service auto glass company. Certified technicians are windshield repair and replacement pros that care about your vehicle. Ace provides the required calibration after a windshield replacement so your safety systems perform properly. Ace also stocks radiators and automotive body clips too. Visit aceautoglass.net for a free quote.
When you think of glass, think Ace Auto Glass.
life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
This message is brought to you by the KUAM Care Force.
We're living in a new world with new ways of communicating, connecting, and moving through life.
Every day seems to be marked with change, and with all these changes, you need trusted people you can rely on for advice and insights about the things that really matter.
Let Gina and I walk you through everything you need to know about real estate, from buying to selling to renting, and all the details in between.
Join us with Jason Salas every week on House to Home.
House to Home every Tuesday on KUM News Primetime, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.
Just as the shore gathers an array of shells, each unique in shape, size, and color, our world gathers people of various backgrounds, cultures, and perspectives.
Diversity is all around us. It's what makes us individually unique and expand our world when we are one.
Honor those in our community who have passed away. Pay your respects and learn information about funeral services on KUAM.com. Offer your condolences and share the memories you will treasure forever.
KUAM online obituaries are made possible by Ada's Mortuary, family owned and operated since 1972, setting the standard for funeral and cremation services.
How much influence did your mother have on you being a politician?
Oh, she was very proud. She wanted my father to be, but then with me, she was very proud, especially I became governor. You see, my father was he was the head of the House of Assembly, where BJ was in the House of Council. And so when my father died, there was a vacuum. It was the Popular Party and the Territorial Party. That motivated me to pursue what he pursued. He didn't run for governor because at that time, governors are appointed by the President of the United States. It was Navy-owned. And so I ran as a territorial. And, you know, it was the Territorial Party was just starting. And I think they've lost one election. And so then I joined them And to everybody's surprise at that time, I guess, we won the majority. And I was the chairman of finance and taxation. But first of all, it was Camacho that was, he was an appointee, Carlos Camacho, the father of Felix. It was appointed by the President of the United States. But then it became, to the Organic Act, I guess, we're able to elect our own governor. And so he ran for governor. And so besides running for the legislature as a territorial, I was also the campaign chairman for Governor Camacho. And we won. We beat Ricky. Then I ran again for the legislature and stayed in the legislature. And at the end of Camacho's administration, I ran against Ricky. And I beat Ricky.
Remember that in those days, Popular Party was the only party. And I remember a lot of pocket meetings, when we go down to the South, there were hardly no people there because there were strong Democratic villages. The stories that they bust out the people when we schedule our meeting, and when we go down there, we're only talking to ourselves and a very handful of supporters. But it was fun in those days, and we went through it so many times.
People took politics very seriously then. This is my father's time, not my time, but my father's time. Well, we could not sell our bread beyond, not even in Georgia, the South, because we had Thomas Bakery, and all the South were Democrats. In fact, when we come to Inarhan, the late Commissioner Diego, right? I'll give you an example of what happens then. We come to Inarhan, nobody there, because the commissioner, they're called commissioners then, would take a bus and bus all his people down to the movies. So we're speaking to an empty place, nobody there. So politics is very personal.
Of course, Paul in those days was, the star. And I just watch and listen. And then in 1964, it was split. A few of the members of the Popular Party put up another party, which is called the Territorial Party. And that's only a handful of people. But they were able to win one election in 1964. But they obviously lost the following year, but in 1966. And in 1970, they won majority in the legislative seats, and in 1972, again won. And he was always the top vote getter. That's how I got to know him, was in 1972, when I ran for an office in the legislature.
First time?
First time, 1972. And of course, Paul and I became close as a result of our political career. When I first started out in politics, that's how I got to know Paul. He's a very nice fellow, very optimistic person. He's very confident and well-liked, charismatic person. When the governor ran for governor, the second time around, he asked me to be his running mate.
I remember in November of 1978, when Governor Calvo was elected governor and Joe Added, now former governor, then a senator, was elected lieutenant governor. And we were partying just a few blocks over here in Agania, and it was raucous. We were having so much fun and yelling, and KUAM was there recording it, and it was a tremendous time. And that's when I was really just jumping into politics. I didn't go head first into the water until maybe 82 or something like that during Ben Blas's initial campaign. But I'd always been a Republican. My grandfather was one of the founders of the party here, along with Governor Camacho, Lieutenant Governor Kurt Moylan, Judge Regis. And then the others slowly made their way over to the National Party. That included Governor Calvo, who was then a senator. So I was happy to see when he was elected governor. I remember when he was elected governor. I remember when He won the nomination to run again. I remember the riding candidacy of 1974 and being up in the compound, and they were talking about having a write-in, and no, let's not do it. And the crowd said, no, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. So they had a write-in. And of course, it wasn't successful, but it was still very spirited, and that's democracy. And politics is the essence of democracy. And when you sit down and we all talk politics with the elder statesmen, if I may call you that, Governor, they know so much more. People like me, I just coached. People like Governor Calvo got in the arena with a sword and went at it with the other guys, and you have to respect him for that. I respect all people who run, whether they win or they lose, because they've thrown their hat into the arena as opposed to sitting in the armchair and looking backwards 2020.
How is it that you became Chief of Staff for Governor Paul Calvo?
When I came in, Matt Lonek was already his Chief of Staff. I worked under Matt Lonek, and we actually had a good working relationship. He saw things from a different perspective, which was necessary. It was only after he resigned then I went up and assumed the position of the Chief of Staff. Nevertheless, it was a very challenging time when I came in, because so many issues that involved the government, and much to probably the amazement of a lot of people, we had a very small staff compared to, even subsequent governors. When I became Chief of Staff, we only had like 27 people on board. He was coming in from the private sector. So it was a whole different mode of thinking, which was good. Because I believe that that's what Guam needed at that time, from the government run from the perspective of a business entity. And certainly Paul Calvo was that. And his policies that he implemented or that he proposed reflected that. And but you still need government professionals to be able to carry on or to implement just the day-to-day functions of government, providing for the basic services to the people. In addition to coming up with the different initiatives that are long-term. But I was very blessed that when working for Paul Calvo as his Chief of Staff, I was the youngest ever selected, appointed. I think I was only 27.
What was the first thing you had to do?
Well, the one that was very major at the time was the political status, the issue of political status. Of course, always the issue of economic development, expanding our base. His thinking was very forward-thinking in that. But also infrastructure, improving government services, the level of government service and the quality of government services to the people. That was always paramount. But there were all these other issues that would always come up, where it doesn't matter which governor, they always do. And so, the staff had to be prepared to be able to, and the governor had to be prepared to deal with them. The governor makes the final decision, but it was my job to be able to give him all the information that he needs, pro and con, for him to make a decision. My job also, at the end of the day, after he makes the decision, is to implement the policy. And that's what I did. The team that he assembled was very qualified, well qualified. And we were just very fortunate, that we had that quality of caliber of people that worked for him. Although it was small, we still did a lot of things.
You mentioned the paper deficit.
There is a real cash deficit, but there's also a paper deficit, which includes the cash deficit. But one of the first jobs I ever had, I was assigned to when I first got in there, was to really make a determination of what is the deficit. Because throughout the history of the legislature and every administration, the executive branch and legislative branch, all these appropriations were made. In reviewing all of them, and I went back to, God, I think I even gave up going back after so many years, because it was just like the records weren't even existent. When you had to go back to the first legislature. But anyway, there were these projects, capital projects, that the legislature would pass an appropriation for, yet we never had any funds to fund these. So they would just stack up. And that's what happened. And so at the end of 5 years or whatever, you're facing with all these, and then you're looking, people say, well, there's got a $20 million deficit. Wait a minute. Out of that $20 million, there's $15 million that, these appropriations that people don't even bother with anymore, but they're still on the books. So I had to identify those appropriations and send over, develop a legislation that would de-appropriate. So the governor transmitted that to the legislature, and of course created a lot of problems, because when mayors and other elected officials said, wait a minute, you can't touch our project and all this, even though the project has never been implemented for 15 years, but still we had to contend with that. So finally the legislature did authorize the passage or the appropriation, and then we were able to get through to language that after so many years of an appropriation being made, that it would be automatically de-appropriated. Paul should really be credited for, because not just the fact that we did have to make the hard decisions on de-appropriating projects, but also develop a procedure for an automatic de-appropriation so that other governors and legislators would not be faced with the same problem. Because the one thing that they will do is just leave it on the books, which adds to the deficit. So, there had to be a procedure or process in place to automatically de-appropriate this.
So how did self-determination become a concern in the Calvo administration?
In the time when the governor took office, there was already a contentious, not a conflict, but there were differences of opinion with the federal government and the government of Guam with respect to moving forward, and primarily on economic development, things that are very critical to the development process of Guam.
One of the reasons why back then we were moving towards status in those days was that the U.S. government, federal government, has been very inconsistent in their ruling with respect to our economic potential policies. We had some garment industry forming, watch industry forming, and then the feds would come and change the policies, and we would lose those industries.
And I remember we wanted to get rid of that Jones Act, which we're still saddled with, but we had to find a way to be able to get around that if Congress didn't want to move in it. Then we had to figure out a way on circumventing it without really violating the law. But, it took a long time.
Was Paul Calvo the first to put political status and self-determination on the political agenda?
Yes, because he was the first one to legally organize a commission to be able to concentrate solely on the issue of political status. And that's what brought it up, elevated to the forefront.
It was during his time that it started. He signed the bill 417 creating the Commission on Self-Determination on May 1980. He was very passionate in our political status in Denver when he was a member of the legislature, and then when he became a governor.
What was his motivation for doing it?
He was one elected leader who saw the need that people of Guam were never exercised their self-determination. So it was really a question of being a patriot, to Guam. We had always talked about it since, and that's why we really focused on the political status question.
What was your role in all that, George?
Writing the executive order which established the commission formally and legally, and then I was the first interim director of the commission until the commission was able to hire somebody else.
What was it like to serve in the Paul Calvo administration?
It was very nice. I enjoyed serving with him because he has a passion of trying to improve the economy of Guam.
Economic development is critical to our political development. You can't develop politically without having a firm foundation economically. And these economic issues have to be addressed in order to provide. Because if we're looking at existing on our own, Guam, then we better have a solid economic foundation. Because the last thing we need is to continue to be dependent on another, we're just going to replace the U.S. with another, doesn't make any sense.
It was very critical that the Navy have not relocated the ammunition wharf at Cabers Island. And he spent a lot of time with the federal government to get the Navy to move it. Because as long as the ammunition wharf is at Cabers Island, the commercial port cannot expand, cannot improve the facilities. We can develop our economic potential. We can invite fishing fleet to home port and use the commercial port as transshipment point, R&R for provision and so forth, and that's a big industry. So he was able to get the Navy to build their own ammunition wharf at Roti Point. That free up now the Cabers Island as well, and we can improve and be out of danger because it's within the explosive zone and it's very risky. That's one of the reasons why it's hard to develop the port.
Another topic that I'd like you to touch on is the negotiations that the governor had with the Navy.
Oh, yeah.
Taking over commercial port. Can you describe how that came about?
Up until the security clearance was lifted on Guam, that was in the early 60s, I think, you got everything, air transportation, surface transportation, the ports were controlled by the Navy. The U.S. Navy had the NAS, and we had a consulate for our airport, our terminal, and then of course the port was right down there, where the existing port is, but in a much smaller area. But it had to coexist with the Navy's own. When you think about it, they own it, they operate it, so the priority is going to be on the military side, not for the civilian side, and that simply cannot work. If we're looking at developing our own infrastructure, which is critical for the economic development of Guam, our ports and airports, we have to control it. There's no way. You need a port that is owned by the government, the people of Guam, that would just cater or to be for the benefit of the local population. Nobody else, because we have a different objective in mind. Ours was not military for defense or anything like that. Ours was for supply of civilian goods to a civilian community. But in essence, also be able to set up the infrastructure for future growth, future expansion of port facilities, which is what happened. That has been ongoing, since even back in after Governor Calvo's administration.
What negotiations did the governor enter in with the Navy for that?
Well, was for the Navy to be able to relinquish control and the assets of the port and also the surrounding area. So, because we were able to acquire additional land around surrounding the port for future development, and which was necessary because this is just planning for the future. We weren't going to build these, humongous facilities and then not be stuck with them. No, we needed it for continued growth, and which was the right approach to take. But we just needed to make sure that we had the space available, the land area that's required for that kind of development.
So where did the Navy go?
They went right across. They had their own Apra Harbor, which went all the way around. It started from the mouth, from one end of Apra Harbor, all the way down to the other side. You stand on the Port Authority today and look across, there's Navy's wharf. When the decision was made by the Navy that they were going to relocate, the first thing they had to do was find whether there was an alternative site to their existing and any proposed facilities that they thought of. So they did take a look at other areas of Guam. Those were ruled out by the Navy, which was good because it would have been too much of a controversy between the Department of Defense and the government of Guam and the people of Guam. So they decided to just proceed in developing from one end of Apra Harbor for their ammunition wharf and for their other wharf areas they would use strictly for the military, and all the way down to Roti Point. For them, it was actually most logical because they already owned the property, so they wouldn't have to acquire any additional property. They knew they needed the facilities. It's just that they couldn't be located in the same place the government of Guam, the Port Authority, was located.
And then he was also the one that started again to ask the military to return about 400 acres back of the property at the commercial port at Cabers Island. And he was able to get it back.
Are you talking about the glass breakwater?
All the way. because they own a lot of Cabras Island. They still have it back then. And so the Navy was holding it. So we weren't able to develop Cabras Island. We were only using the small limited area for the commercial port, and we need to expand the container yard, the fishing industry related facilities there, and other light industry warehouses. So he was very successful in getting that thing done.
The Navy returned not just from the tip of the glass Cabras breakwater, just follow the curve of the bay and all the property inland, well up to the road, the highway. And it encompassed not just the port facilities, but also additional property behind the port to be developed as an industrial park. And then also behind the port where the fuel tanks are now, the Cabras power plant, that used to be Navy. And then further on down to the inner harbor, to where the ski beach, that area, and then that would close up. But in that property contains infrastructure for fuel oil pipelines. There's different infrastructure that are critical to port operations.
And that all happened in when?
That was started actually during Governor Calvo's administration. As far as I can remember, not all of it was completed, but that's okay. Because, you know, the key is to get it started, get them to agree, and Guam benefits, yeah.
And the other thing he did also was engage the Navy to terminate the Power Pool Agreement. We worked towards the termination of the Power Pool Agreement. And the reason for that is that the Navy was not paying their costs. The government of Guam is paying much of the cost for the production of the power. And that the Navy weren't improving the system as well. And there's no investment in building an additional power plant. And that's hurting our economy also because we're trying to build our potential economic activities. So, you know, you can't invite industry here. You can't build additional hotels if you don't have adequate power, reliable power. In those days were a lot of power outages. So as a result of it, the Navy finally increased their share of the Power Pool Agreement, and then we finally took over the system. We had a long negotiation because we had to also, we can understand the concern that if we take over, that we have good management in place and so forth.
Because they were susceptible.
Yeah, because it's military interest again, and we understand that. And so we have to develop those trusts, and we have to bring in good, very competent people to run the power facility. So that allows us to grow and build new power plants and be in a position to adequately provide for any economic development. So those are very good points that the governor had fought back then and won.
You know, there were also not just the shipping, the surface shipping, but air transportation. Because Jones Act affected our surface sea transportation, and the airlines, the air routes were being affected by the cabotage rules. So we were just being squeezed on both air and surface.
So you found a way to relieve the shipping problem from the Jones Act. How did you do it for the air service?
Well, we had to go through the federal government, and because whenever they negotiate this air treaties with different countries, we needed to make sure that Guam was in there to be able to, that Guam's position was put forth. I mean, we're just an island of, 32 miles long, 8 miles wide, hardly a dent in anybody's industry. So, we just had to make sure, because whenever the U.S. government were negotiating these treaties, I mean, it was negotiated on the standpoint of their frame of mind was strictly from what's going to benefit the continental United States. That doesn't necessarily apply to Guam. During Paul Calvo's administration, we began that. We began this really concerted effort. And we even had some people with the Department of Commerce. There were also individuals that were heavily involved that had good relationships with the federal agencies that we had working on that, so that You know, it was just a question of convincing the people who did the actual negotiation of what Guam's position was and why it was important, you know. And they, 9 times out of 10, they had no problem with it.
So how did you relieve that?
Well, first of all, they opened additional gateways which included Guam. And then take Japan, for instance. They added on additional, not just additional flights, but also gateway cities. So that way we had more travel that could be coming into Guam from different areas. It applied also to Hong Kong, even to the Philippines, and all over, you know, throughout Asia. So the foundation was set for even future growth, you know, and that's really what we were looking at. The tourism industry was just starting, was just developing. We were looking at transportation, surface transportation, Guam being a transshipment point. Then also for the air, and make it so that we have more airlines that would be capable. Would be capacity to service Guam from more airlines rather than just a few. When the governor first took office, the Guam, the airport, the actual airport, had just opened. And when it opened, it was already obsolete. I don't know if you remember the old airport. Went from a Quonset hut to a concrete building, but where the old terminal is now, that was the Guam International Airport. And then it was just too small. So we started planning on the development of a new facility, an international terminal with, I believe at that time, it was only like 7 or 8 gateways. I can't really remember the exact number, but it was even less than what we have now. What we have now is the result of subsequent development. But the original improvement to the old airport, where the new airport was constructed, actually occurred during the Calvo administration. We're doing all the promotions for developing our tourism industry, yet, you know, we don't have the facilities, the infrastructure to service them. And so, you know, it had to go hand in hand. Sometimes you need to have the infrastructure there in place before you start developing. But, you know, we just decided, look, Guam is already, you know, we know where we're going. This has been set. So it's just a question of getting the agreements in place. And, you know, because we had to have the physical infrastructure to accommodate any increased air traffic. So that's what happened.
What about the other parts of the infrastructure, like the sewer and the roads?
Well, the roads, the Federal Highway Administration was already improving a lot of the primary roads. So that was on track. The problem was on the secondary roads, which is inside the villages. So there was a proposal that came down to the governor with an idea, because we wanted to do something for the villages, you know, improve the infrastructure, that kind of thing. But particularly roads, you know, and because the road was terrible, roads were terrible. So what happened was there was the director of public works at that time brought down his engineer. We had a meeting with the governor and said, well, they figured a way to reduce the cost substantially, rather than building a new road, secondary road, resurface the old one. And we said, so they made their pitch, and, you know, the governor liked it, and everything was, and we just said, okay, and we were able to fund that on incrementally, rather than, you know, trying to fund an entire project, island-wide project.
The other thing I liked about what he did was he built a lot of paved roads in the villages. Because in those days, you know, it's so rough, inadequate. And so he started building a lot of paved roads. And in the southern also, he built some of the paved road in the villages.
Although we implemented it way before the election, it became a political issue. Well, because the people that were working in the, you know, down on the front lines were actually, when they paved, they would pave driveways or, in some cases, parking lots. And when it first came to our attention, no, you know, that was absolutely, we didn't want that to begin with. Because it was a good program, and it just got, tainted by that, which was so sad because it did benefit a lot of people, notwithstanding the issues. But a lot of and they're still around. The roads are still there, and I could see going through some of the villages. Hey, that's a road that that's a Governor Calvo's road.
Why was it politicized?
Well, because the people down the teams that were working at the village level, they started saying, well, let's pave this road and skip this other road because, whoever lived there. And
whoever lived there? What?
Well, whether, they became Democrat or Republican. So obviously, naturally, and, I just said, that's not right, period. It should never have been done that way. But, obviously, we could not, there wasn't any control from the top. Although we did give the orders, the governor gave the orders, no, that is not to be done. It was still happening. And there was, a breakdown, obviously, and that's where, it actually broke down. But it was actually a good program, notwithstanding all these problems. But, and people still talk about it today.
The good roads.
Yeah, the good roads.
Paul doesn't have any pretense, right? He is what he is. And he's not one who intimidates. So he was a good governor. And truly, I've never, if there's anything I remember about Paul Calvo, he's a great campaigner. He loves to campaign. He loves meeting people. If I wanted to stay a politician, I want to be like Paul Calvo. But Paul was a hard worker. And he was genuine also. He wasn't aloof. And he works very hard at campaigning. One thing that you remember about Paul, man, he's always out there. Spends a lot of time on the campaign trail.
One of the other things that came up in the campaign for Paul Calvo's re-election was road paving. Do you remember that?
Yes. That was a big, thing. Those side roads were just really in gross disrepair.
So why did it become a negative issue for his campaign?
Oh, because, if you pave my road, man, I'll vote for you. So that's a lot of votes. From the governor's standpoint, he's doing something good for the people. From the opposition's point of view, you are upsetting the apple cart because you're doing this for their vote. So,
But as it turned out, though, that road paving did a lot because in a lot of the places in the boony areas, they paved things. And if they hadn't done that, people would still be wallowing in mud to this day, But unfortunately, that road paving was his undoing because the KUAM Cable was relentless in its campaign against it. It was pounding this thing every night. Lee Holmes was doing this, and I think that the campaign people did not address that. They did not go to Lee Holmes to convince him that about the worthiness of the project. And there were people whose areas were being paved, and when the cable came around, they were chasing away with weapons and get off my property and all that sort of thing. Eventually, it turned out to be a very good thing for a lot of people. Because I remember very distinctly people from the south who were in the boone areas and they had no roads. And one day, a bunch of them, they went into their mud piles and with their shoes and all that. And then they went down to the office and brought all that into the governor's office and to demonstrate their problem. And this, was one way for them to get the governor to respond to their needs. And he did. In a lot of areas like that, as I said, eventually, was very useful,
But more important, he also included sewer system to preserve our water aquifer in the northern KUAM. Well, this story started. We had funding from the federal government And I was actually involved in that when I was Deputy Director of Public Works. Governor Camacho at that time appointed me as chairman of the Guam Water Pollution Control Commission in those days, which is now EPA. And we were supposed to come out with a sewer master plan for Guam because we didn't have any sewer. And in order for us to get federal funding, we have to have a master plan. And we only had a staff of about 3. And one of them, Dr. Natarajan, I'll never forget that guy because he was very good. He was the one that developed it. So we went through that process, and we had to have public hearing. And I'll never forget because we'll have public hearing. Nobody was there. Only one person I remember that came to that public hearing was Zero Cardo Salas. Only him. And so we had no problem passing, where to put the outfall, where to start laying the sewer, the treatment plant, and so forth. We had no problem doing that. I mean, we went through the process and we approved it, and it was then that we started getting federal funds. Those are kind of memories that you don't forget because who would think that a sewer master plan would make a difference? Because fast forward during my administration, it helped me because it's already in place.
Not too many people know this, but environmentally we were able to, we didn't solve all the problems of the environment. We were working on the ordinance. That was like back then. It became so mired in politics. It happened during Paul Cava's administration where we were being cited by US EPA for environmental concerns of order. Yet we were, back then, we were looking for a place, another site. But it was always hitting that political NIMBY wall. And frankly, they were trying to close that. We've been trying to close that down for 20, 30 years. I mean, we had the money from Interior since 1978.
How much?
At that time, it was only $4 million. In those dollars now, ballooned up to hundreds. We figured out that during Paul's administration, that in order to fix the schools structurally, we would only require $15 million. $15 million. Now, they're putting out a contract, and they're not even going to fix all the schools structurally. I mean, the needed repairs, $100 million. In order to have the hotels developed, you have to have, first sufficient water and sufficient treatment of any of the sewage. The last thing we wanted to do was undersize these sewage improvements so that you would have constant overflows and that kind of thing, which did happen actually, because it just overwhelmed the system. There were spills and that kind of, and which was, bad for the environment, bad for people, and so we needed to get that resolved. Building a sewage treatment plant is not, you just don't do it in 30 days. It takes planning, it takes engineering, and it takes a while to construct. So, we knew that when we started, whichever project we started, would not be done until after we left office, which is okay, because, that's what it is. That's how it should be. Although, I think there was such rapid growth during a short period of time that it obviously overwhelmed the system, and in some cases caused spills and, environmental issues. Then, of course, subsequent administrations did upgrade the facilities, and also I think what actually helped in one way, and it was actually a blessing because there was a pause in the hotel tourism development, hotel construction of several years. So that allowed the government to properly assess and adequately plan for future, because it wasn't going to remain stagnant. I mean, we were also, during Paul Cava's, that's the one thing we needed to do was to restart the tourism industry.
What caused the slowdown?
Well, the Japanese economy. There was a crash in Japan. They had their economy there went down, and of course we were so dependent on the Japanese that it affected us. But during that period of time, all the hotels had been owned by the Japanese, corporations, Japanese companies. What the government decided to do was just target a specific hotel operation to be able to serve as a catalyst for other hotel development. Other companies that were just sitting on the sideline to see what's happening. So we went after the Nauru, Republic of Nauru owned property there on Guam. And we spoke to we even sent trade missions, seeing the president of Nauru. He came to Guam, the governor met with him, and just doing really trying to get him to agree to develop. And it worked out. It turned out that he did, and he made the commitment. This was before the election, and I'll never forget, because we were having dinner at the government house when the president of Nauru came in, and I remember him telling the governor that he had made a commitment to the governor that he was going to proceed with building a hotel. And he told the governor, he says, although the election didn't turn out the way, he didn't win, but he made a commitment and he was going to follow through with it, and that's fine, because that was what we were looking at. So what happened was the Republic of Nauru, the Pacific Star Hotel, was built and dedicated a year, 2 years after Paul left office. But in that period of time, all these other hotels started their own construction, started their development, and fueled the second boom, the tourism boom in Guam. So what the governor's vision was in how to restart the industry development, actually came to fruition. He did it by focusing on one, and then it's like when, you build it and they will come. And that's exactly what happened.
And look at it today.
Yeah, today, there's a lot of growth, and I don't even know whether they could accommodate more. But, of course, spreading it to other areas has always been on the forefront of consideration. But then you have other, issues that would be involved in that, like with, developing in the South, for instance, and, it's very difficult. So whether the tourism development would be confined to specific areas, I think that's the issue that would be probably the next challenge.
What was the greatest controversy that you remember in your first term?
The teacher strike, because I don't like to get angry, even though I do get angry sometimes. But that brought about a lot of tensions on the teacher strike, and thank God. I've got people that were very helpful, but there was about maybe 4 or 5 people definitely that were very much instrumental in helping me to calm down the strike. I remember that at one time I was leaving Government House, and they blocked it. So I jumped up. Normally, the cops do all those things. I went over and I jumped on top of the hood to get it. I said, "What do you guys want?" I forgot everything that was turned about, but then they cleared up to let me out. That was the platform to talk to them.
Well, what triggered the teachers' strike was this whole issue of pay. And I recall that the legislature had passed a bill that would raise salaries of not just senators, but also certain, cabinet members. And I remember discussing with the governor, the ramifications of that. And although, we certainly would want to look at the salary ranges, because they haven't been raised, for a long time. But the question was timing, on whether we could afford it or not. And in my meetings with our budget people, BBMR, as well as our other finance directors, we just couldn't afford it. And it would have not just bankrupted the government, but really shut it down. Our position was we just couldn't afford it at this time. It doesn't mean that we're opposing it, but right now we can't. And so the union and the members decided, well, they wanted it or not. That was it. There was no other position. And so there is a law which applies to strikes against the government by government employees, and which is essentially the framework that we looked at and we're using, so we're making sure that everything we do was within the law. And so when the decision was made by the union to call the strike, we had no alternative except to follow the law to make sure that the government kept running. So that's what happened. The result was, of course, prolonged, lengthy strike. The people were getting terminated in the government that were on strike, and that's probably the worst. It's a terrible feeling. If you're going to make a decision that affects the livelihoods or lives of people and their families. It's really difficult. But on the one hand, it just couldn't do it. Sometimes I think, well, were we able to communicate that effectively prior to the strike, to prevent a strike and then continue the negotiations? And that's the one thing, the question that I've always asked myself. Could we have done something different? And, of course, that's already as history, and, but it's something that I would never want to go through that again.
How many people were terminated?
Oh, gosh. Definitely over 3,000. Most of them from DOE. But we had others from other agencies. So, and, lots of people were my friends, too, and so watched them picketing and all that, and, I just feel very badly about it because, they had their position, and I recognize and respect them. Of course, when it came down to entering into negotiations again to end the strike, we did meet with them, the union officials, and we came to an agreement. Everybody that had been let go would be reinstated. And there were some obviously that didn't want to come back. But that's one of the problems we had to deal with. Well, in the interim, we still had to keep the government running, the schools operating, kids educated. So we immediately went out, recruited on a temporary basis, particularly the retired teachers, retired government employees, to come back in, because that's the only pool we had. Then when that was exhausted, we had to go outside from that retired pool who had the experience and credentials. And then that's when there were problems that occurred. We foresaw that there could have been. We didn't want it to happen, but it did happen.
Like what?
Well, like substitute teachers were being hired that really had no teaching credentials. And it became very dangerous to be able to put them in the classrooms, because that the kids aren't going to be learning anything. So that's why we needed to make sure that we, at least from a teaching standpoint, we got the retired teachers, as many as we could. And of course, obviously, we didn't have enough. The same with other agency employees. We were also, we had that pool. We already had a pool of retirees that were identified prior to, because we just didn't want to call it, fire everybody and not have anything in place. So that's what happened. We had a plan already, a backup plan, which hoping that we would never want implemented, but we had to.
That must have been very, very difficult for you.
It was. I remember I was in my office and the director of education came in, and literally we were working to try and come up with some remedy to prevent what was a catastrophic event. And there was just no way. Impossible, because the positions were already entrenched. It got very emotional. Because we thought about the families that would be affected, employees and their families. And, and then the services to be impacted. And we had to identify really where we were going to be lacking and where we needed to make sure so that the government kept running. And that was the responsibility of the governor.
Who was the director at the time?
Catherine Uggan.
When you said it even got emotional, what happened?
She was very passionate, and her passion was really reflected in her arguing for her position. But at the same time, I recognized that her position, I empathized with her, but I had to think of the governor's position. Guam is small. Everybody knows everybody. And so, there isn't a person that you didn't know, that I didn't know, that was affected one way or the other. I had friends, close friends and relatives marching in the picket lines, and I felt, there's nothing worse. That's probably one of the worst feelings that I ever had, was, having to make a decision that adversely impacted so many lives.
What about the governor? What was he like at that time?
He was very, he felt the same. He was always asking me, what are the options? Short of this drastic step. And he wanted to make sure everything was, we looked at everything, we explored everything, and obviously, he had to make the final decision. And my job was to implement it, his decision. And I know he was very torn about it, because we spent long hours discussing it, just going over everything, just going over what the effects would be, how are we going to mitigate them, if it came to that. So he was very torn also. He knew all the people, that would be affected. So, and it wasn't just the government, it affected private businesses too. People don't have money to go out and buy things, and businesses can't operate. It was a ripple effect, and in hindsight, I don't think there was anything anybody could do, really, when it came down to it. You were faced with this decision that you didn't want to make, but the consequences of not making it, you had to judge which was more dire. But before he actually made the decision, we both thought about it. Very difficult time to sleep. The next morning, we met. We had a meeting scheduled already, and we discussed it again. Went through it. He wanted to know what exactly the procedures were and how many people would be affected. And, which was at that time we didn't know, but it was quite a bit, quite a few. That lasted because don't forget, we were already looking at all these before that day. It was just like, has anything changed? Is there anything that, any promise or any hope of salvaging this? And, the deadlines were already imposed.
Bring me to the moment.
We looked at each other, and he just told me, I asked him, I said, "Go. You need to make a decision," and he just said, "Well, go ahead." That was it. And of course the downside of it politically was it did affect the governor's re-election. And he knew that, and we all discussed it, but he just had to do what needed to be done, as much as he didn't want to.
You go even today and you want to talk to people who know something about politics and get advice. It was the same then. And one of the people you would try to talk to all the time was Governor Calvo, because you just knew everything. He just knew so much about politics. He just knew so much about what the voters want, who the voters were. Governor Calvo is one of those guys one of those people who can see you and hadn't seen you in 10 years, and he'll know exactly who you are. He remembers. And that's a great gift for a politician. He was a politician.
My father was approached because it was determined that Joe Addo might not run again for re-election with Paul Calvo, whether I would consider the position of running as lieutenant governor. I considered it because I like Paul, and I found him to be straight, and I found him to be honest, and I found him to, harbor some of the same values I was brought up with, And so I decided to do it. And I'll tell you, it was not only rewarding, it was a wonderful experience in my life running with Paul Calvo, because we traversed the whole island. We went to every single village. We met, or at least for me, I met so many people. And, it was an experience that I would suspect that most people will never have. And the whole time, Paul was always there. He goes, "Pete, I think, you need to go up to Dedido." So I'd go up to Dedido. They used to tease me because said, "You got to work harder, Pete." I said, "Are you kidding? I'm out every day." I was young. But you know what? Paul was young too. He was in his, couldn't have been, more in his mid-40s, 44, 45, So we roll into a village, and as we usually do, we kind of split up. But people see us, right? They're talking and everything else. So this lady comes up to me. She goes, "Hey, Pete." I go, "Yeah." "Is that your dad?" I said, "Who?" She goes, "The guy over there. It's Paul Calvo." Oh, I not in front of her, but I had to suppress it. I couldn't stop laughing inside. And I said, no, that's Paul Calvo. My dad's a little older, and he looks a little different. This happened 40 some years ago. So to this day, as a joke, it's a joke that he and I have continued. We'll be at Payless, of all places, waiting in the checkout lines, and he'll see me and he'll go, "Hey, son." And I go, "Dad, how's things?" We go over, we embrace, say hi, get back in line. He goes through, and of course, all the cashiers are wondering, who the hell is this guy? Is he really Paul Calvo's son? And I've been asked. And I've told him, no. In a way, we had kind of a father-son relationship when we were together in politics some years ago. One episode I'll never forget, and it really touched my late wife. We were in Barrigada. I'll never forget this. And my son Tony was about 3 years old, 4 years old. And he did not want to be at this rally. He kept saying, "I want to go home. I want to do this." And so, Paul and I are walking around. There's several hundred people there. And finally starts crying. And Paul was the guy, not Barbara, not anybody else, not my father, not anyone else, who went up and picked him up and comforted him. Said, "You're going to go home soon, son. But we just need to do something. Just, kind of bear with us, so to speak, But in a kind of very sweet, fatherly, tone. And so my son Tony calmed down, went back to his mother. We did our thing that night and went home. But Paul had kind of that touch, especially with young people and with kids. He could be a soothing influence. And so I think a lot of people may remember him just for that.
So Pete, what's out on the floor?
Oh, lest we forget, this is from 1982. This is a campaign poster that Paul Calvo and I had. That was a wonderful and rewarding episode in my life, that campaign. And it helped to cement really a lifelong friendship based on nothing more than, mutual respect.
Guam has come a long way in politics from the 1970s to 2000 teens. Remember, we didn't elect our first governor until 1970. Before that, they were appointed, which is how my grandfather got to be governor. And it's so much different. Besides the social media part of it, everything changes in life. You can't, the water keeps flowing down the river. And same thing with Guam. We can't go backwards. We'll never be 1970 again. We'll never be 1920 again. There were more people on the registration roll. But back then it was much more personal. You had pocket meetings that people would actually attend. You would really go door to door canvassing. You would go out to your friends. You would go out to the commissioners. They weren't mayors yet; they were commissioners, and you have to get to know all of them and work with them because Guam was much more tight knit 50 years ago, 40 years ago than it is today. And I think that's the biggest difference. It was just more hand on hand, eyeball to eyeball, as opposed to Facebook to Facebook. Why was Paul the one who became the politician in the family? I think part of it's because he's personable. He was very good-looking man, still is, Gov. Very good-looking man, and you have to want to be that politician. His brother Eddie was a senator for 1 or 2 terms, but he was the one who really wanted to go for the total banana tree. And that's when they had Gun Beach. And I remember the rally down there one time, and the speakers all up there on the stage. We're all in the sand. We're having fun. And, I'm in my 20s, so I'm having a lot of fun. And Governor Calvo gets up there and he sings the song you would expect him to sing. I did it my way. And he crooned. He was very, very good at it. And I can still see him up there singing that song.
Paul Calvo was a remarkable politician, man. I mean, there's, a very generous man, very, a kind man. There's not a place that, or, funeral that he would not attend or he would not go. When he was a candidate and we told him, drop everything, go this, go there, no matter what time of day, he would go. He was, he was tireless in that sense.
Were you happy with your governorship?
I was happy to the extent that I was there, but we didn't have, you cannot compare it to the time that we're here right now. Not only in the competition that was there, because, Ricky Berdalli is one of the tough guys at the time, and but Ricky, I beat Ricky, but then he came back and beat me.
Only, the Democratic Party for decades didn't have anybody else to put up except Ricky. You wonder why. Why is this so? Why wouldn't anybody else come up and try to displace him? Nobody could. He had a way with people, He was so charismatic that people just naturally followed him,
So on Guam, what really determines who wins and who loses?
I think it's what you do and how you're perceived in the community. And when you're in, what did you accomplish?
KUAM TVH, first on Guam.